Jonah was a prophet of the Lord, around 60 years before the northern kingdom of Israel would be annihilated. We know this by a few sparse references about the prophet found elsewhere in the text. We don't know what type of prophet Jonah was, whether he was a professional temple prophet in the same vein, say, as Nathan or Elijah, which means he would have been living in the temple and a close advisory to the king, or if he was one of those weird desert wilderness type of prophets, the ones that just have sackcloth and eat locusts, similar to the prophet of Jeremiah. But he was a prophet. He wasn't crazy. He did hear from the Lord. When God goes to Jonah and says, "Get up and go to Nineveh and tell them that I will utterly destroy the city because of their wickedness." But of course, Jonah does not do what God tells him to do. Instead of going to Nineveh, he goes off almost in the completely opposite direction to the port city of Tarshish. Take a look at this map, and it's obvious that this is not just a simple case of misdirection. He didn't get lost. It wasn't as if God said, "Okay, type into your GPS, head east 2,500 miles down Old Jerusalem Road." No, Jonah gets on a boat and heads due west towards Tarshish. Jonah is on purpose going the exact wrong way. Tarshish was one of the wealthiest port cities in the Mediterranean at the time, known for its trade and precious metals. It was an opportunity for people to start anew, to set off on their life and maybe make a fortune for themselves. Nineveh, on the other hand, was the capital city of the Assyrian Empire, the big, bad bullies on the block at the time, who were trying to invade and conquer and destroy the northern kingdom of Israel. Something which would, in fact, take place just a little over a generation later. If I were to try to give you another modern-day example to help with the context here, imagine that you are getting ready, or imagine that World War II is just about to break out. Hasn't quite yet, but you can tell that it's coming. And God comes to you and says, "Get up and go to Berlin and tell Hitler that I am going to punish him for invading the nations around him." And instead of getting on a boat and heading towards Germany, you go to Las Vegas, Nevada, and try your luck at the craps tables. But as we talked about last week, Jonah wasn't running from God out of fear. At least not when we get to Jonah chapter 4, when he tells God directly, "Isn't this what I said, Lord? When I was still at home, this is why I tried to forestall by fleeing to Tarshish, because I knew that you were a gracious and compassionate God, slow to anger and abounding in love, a God who relents from sending calamity." Personally, I would have been terrified if God told me to go to the capital city of my enemies to preach to them. But at least in hindsight, by Jonah's own admission, he is not motivated by fear, but by anger when he runs from God. And at least fear would have been more understandable. A lot of people have compromised who they were or their morality because of fear. Whether it's something big like, I'm afraid I'm going to lose my life here, or something smaller like, well, I might lose my job, or people might not like me all that much if I don't fall in line with the popular opinion of the day. But here, Jonah is not running from God because he got lost. He's not running from God because he's afraid. By his own admission, he is running from God because he does not want to warn Nineveh of the coming judgments.